Thank you for answering those questions. Now we'll go back to the workshop, and now we understand that we have a lot of service providers here, and we also have an idea about what you believe are the challenges that you might face if you were to get accredited. So we'll try to focus on those points during the presentation. So to start off, to brief you on the objectives of this workshop, it's fourfold. So we will give you an overview of the updates, the proposed updates on the NI audit accreditation standard, followed by a brief on the rationale or the reasons why these changes are being implemented. And then we will also give you an overview of what are the potential benefits that you as service providers might receive when these changes are implemented. And then followed by a small glimpse of the future. And here it's basically there may be regulatory mandates coming up in the future, and also what we project could be potential business growth. As one of the answers that we saw is lack of business opportunities is a challenge that you feel in obtaining an accreditation. So we will, when you go through the workshop, you'll understand how these changes will actually help you have more business opportunities. Now, an overview on the accreditation process. So let's start with what is accreditation. So I'm sure most of you know, but let's go to have a quick recap of that as well. It's basically a mechanism of getting an assurance of an entity being able to, on its capability and capacity to deliver a particular service. So in this case, in our case, we are talking about cybersecurity related services. And what are the different accreditation services that are currently available under the NICF framework? We have NI audit accreditation, which is very specific to the audit conducted for NI certification. Then we have advisory accreditation, which is for consulting and implementation for information security in various organizations. And followed by the penetration testing accreditation, and this is very specific to the organizations that offer penetration testing services to other entities within the state of Khazar. And if you're interested in getting accredited in any of the current schemes that we have, or any schemes that might come up in the future, we'll go through a very high level on what is the accreditation application process. So if you would wish to get accredited, so first we will have to apply for the service that you want to get accredited for. And with the application comes submission of certain documents related to your organization and the service that you would offer. And on a after a high level review of that, you will be required to pay an application fees, and then start the actual review of the organization. So our team here will perform an in-depth review of the service for which you are planning to get accredited. And during the review, if there are non-conformities noted, a report will be issued. And you will be requested to submit a corrective action plan. And within a specific timeline that will be mentioned to you when the report is issued. And on being successfully able to address all the non-conformities to the corrective action plan, and on review of that will be the final decision on whether or not to award the accreditation to your organization. And then if the decision is taken to award, then there is an accreditation fees that you will have to pay. Now, every accreditation has a life cycle, and the accreditation that you would receive has a 3-year life cycle. Within the 3 years, there could be various things that could potentially happen that could affect your accreditation. So, one of the things is the yearly maintenance. So, there is a yearly maintenance involved, and during this, review of the services offered and your projects that you've handled, along with certain company details, is done. And if there are any issues found, your accreditation could potentially be suspended. And again, there is opportunity to fix those gaps that would be, that if there is any identified. And if you are successfully able to, you will get reinstated. And if not, the status could get withdrawn. And at the end of 3 years, there is a renewal. So if you are able to successfully get your accreditation renewed, then your accreditation is maintained. And if you do not apply for renewal at the end of 3 years, there is a time frame, and the details of these things, the time frame for each of these things, the requirements for each of these things are available on our website. So there are documents for all of these available on our website.
So this application is for the companies. They can get certified to use this application to do audit. This is the aim of this application, or?
Yes, it is for audit organization. They will not be able today to certify in get NIA certification. We use accredited auditors. Only these are the ones that are allowed to perform the audit. Because as MCSA, we use that final output in our decision. So they have to go through this process to be able to be considered.
لأن هي اسمها application. فأنت شو تقصد بالapplication؟
Which one?
اللي هي بتاع السلايدز 8.
Application to get accredited. في application للcertification تقديم للcertification في تقديم للحصول على الاعتماد. This one is application for accreditation, audit accreditation. السيشن اللي بعدها بعد ان شاء الله بعد البراير بريك تكون على NIA certification as an entity.
لا يعني مثلا احنا لو جاتنا شركه احنا نتوقع ان الشهاده دي معاها. We will accept any company to apply to do this. They have the certification from you guys.
Yes. As a step, you put it into your request for a proposal, or you don't even have to put it in request for a proposal. As part of the selection, NCSA will be involved, and if the entity that is get in touch with you is not accredited, we will hold the process. We will let you know that company is not allowed to do the audit. And the listing is publicly available on our website with the different status. So at any time you can check. There is, I think, you have the QR code at the end, or we can put it in the website, where all the listing of all the accredited service provider for all the schemes, the pen test, the audit, the advisory, for all of them and their current status, so you know who you can submit.
If we could just move on to what are the financial investment that you will need to make if you wish to get accredited under any of the schemes. As we mentioned in the application process, there is an application and award fees, and followed by a renewal fees at the end of the 3-year life cycle. And then in case if there is a suspension that happens and you get reinstated, there is a reinstatement fees. In addition to these, there is an NIA auditor training and exam that we do conduct, and that comes with a certain fees as well. Now that you have done the investment, so what are the benefits that you could get if you are accredited? On the customer side, being accredited gives you more credibility as well as trust that you are capable of delivering the service of a certain quality. And this also gives you a competitive advantage and also gives you access to a larger market because it does recognize your organization on a certain service. And finally, with the existing customers, you can have an extended relationship, or improved relations through the quality of the service that you will be able to provide. That was on the overview. Now we'll move on to the updates on the accreditation standard, and I'll hand it over to my colleague Saif.
Thank you, Sarita, for this wonderful introduction. I'll use this one. I'll use this one. I'll use this mic. Sorry? Okay, for you. Okay. Fancy stuff. Okay. So, basically, after this introduction, we will start the important part, or why should you, as a service provider, you are offering audit services in general. Maybe part of your financial audit services, you have IT or information security, or you are offering information security or IT audit services You do gap assessment, internal audit, externalization. Why would this be important for you? And this will answer, I saw earlier in the graph when you said there were a lot of answers saying there is a lack of business opportunity for you. We understand that you're not for non-for-profit organizations, there should be some return on investment. So this is how we're going to show you that there actually is. And this is why I think adamant that for ourselves, all the auditors that we had that finished their 3 years period of accreditation, if they didn't find any business, why would they renew? Ask yourself this simple question. Why would they pay again those fees if there is no business for them? So if they can find that ROI, you also can find it, because we are expanding, and at some point there is a need, but there is no one to respond to it. So very quickly, we want to introduce you to the updates. So the purpose of the updates, so the whole point of this workshop is to tell you we had the audit accreditation for a while, but we are updating it. We are updating it because we want to introduce efficiency, clarity, and accessibility. So in other words, we want to learn from the lessons of the previous cases. We listen to the service provider, we listen to the certified entities in NIA, we listen to the entities that did not get the NIA certification. So for example, they just implemented NIA as a standard, but they didn't get the certification, or they had hard time implementing and still implementing the NIA standard. We surveyed all of this. I invite you in the booth, there is a flyer about the accreditation that shows different figures. We are putting certain of them, but we invite you to take those flyers and in the booth that we have in CSA main, next to the main hall, that explains we did a survey among accredited advisors, accredited auditors, certified entities with NIA, entities that implemented NIA that did not get certified, entities that had challenges in implementing NIA. We compiled all of this data and we used it to make these updates. So these updates are not kind of like we decided just to change. So basically, we standardize the processes to avoid like there is any difference between auditor to auditor. So trying to make things the same way regardless of who's the auditor that you select as an entity. Second, provide more clear directive and procedures for you as an auditor. Sometimes we want, yes, you are accredited, but you might need some help from our end. What do you mean by this requirement? Explain certain requirements. So as of now, for example, we have one audit standard, one document called audit standard. We are about to publish an updated version of the audit standard and 9 complementary documents between standard operating procedure and technical directive. So you have all the detail needed for you to do your job and to clarify things for you. You don't have to ask a question, you don't have to assume things and then realize that it's not that what we mean in CSA, which impact your accreditation. So we want also to reduce the effort of the audit, both on the auditor and the auditee, make it more smoother, less heavy, burdensome. And finally, for the non-accredited auditor also, or non-accredited service provider, it's easier for them to get in. You don't have to be in a certain circle that was knowing about NIA or audit accreditation from the beginning, from 2019. You can come fresh, you don't have any idea about what is NIA audit, and you don't feel it's difficult for you to get that learning curve and get the accreditation. So these are the objectives, and basically the additional gain beside the benefits that we just showed, these are the ones that we are basically trying to show you. This is actual data, historic data that shows that there is business growth. This is what is in the flyer. So we run the survey among the accredited service providers. Across the accreditation period, depending on how long they have been accredited, those service providers, 3 years, 2 years, 5 years. On average, they have sustained growth of 26% in their business related to their accreditation. They had an increase in team size, about 21% in team size. They have on average 7 new clients that they didn't do business before with them. And a satisfaction rate of 87% with their clients. So we surveyed their clients and they said those. Yes, please. Yes.
entity gets certified as an auditor,
Yeah.
can they do consultancy as well?
Accredited as an auditor, so to avoid that. Okay.
So can they do consulting as well?
Yes, they can get accreditation in advisory, but obviously they cannot do it for the same client.
Okay.
As simple as that.
No, but there are standards which allow us to do it, like PCI DSS, you can do consultancy as well as the
For the same client.
Yes.
For us, it's not allowed.
Okay, thank you.
So that's from the business group. We also reviewed. Now there is certain hidden thing that you don't see unless you get into the process. When the requirements are the same since we started, we found 27% compliance growth with the service provider. So let's say take a service provider that applied for accreditation. Once they applied, they had, for example, 60% compliance to the requirement. Through the accreditation, and this is the purpose, the return also on investment that you get internally, that you don't see it on client, they had on average about 27% compliance increase. So because we help you, kind of like as a service provider, to improve within your internal control system yourself. So we had a lot of service providers that did not have insurance, for example, before. We had service providers that did not have detailed process of how to hire or evaluate competency or something like that. We didn't have service providers that have certain deficiency when it comes to, for example, project management, intellectual property, for example, protection. As per our requirement, we mean. We are not saying that they don't have anything, but as per our requirement. The fact that once you get a credit, you have to maintain it. If you lose or you drop into compliance, you get suspended, and then you have to provide corrective action plan, getting it reinstated, and so on. This pushes you to improve. Inherently, this is the process, how it goes. So there is also a return on investment from that perspective. Now, all of this is nice, but let's say other things that you might interest you about the future. So basically, those changes that we are introducing, so they will be effective from January 1st, 2025. What does it mean? That any audit that will happen for NI certification from January 1st should be based on these new standards. So we have 3 months, so we will be published this week, early next week. Sorry, this month, not next week. This week is already done. So next week or early the week after, so by this month, you will have those 3 months to read it carefully, understand what this has on it and everything. And any accredited service provider by that time has to do the audit as per these new requirements. Now for new application, it starts from the moment of publishing. So if a new application, this is the new standard that you have to apply for. And for existing accredited auditors, we have dedicated tailored transition plan for each one of them depending on where their accreditation will, re-accreditation or next maintenance will happen. We have a tailored plan for existing service providers. Now, going back to what a little bit Engineer Dana earlier said in the main stage in the first presentation. So based on the strategy, now we are using the cybersecurity strategy that have been launched and push heavily for assurance and compliance in the set. So basically, like she explained, we are securing more in critical sector and supply chain. This is the focus. How are we gonna do this? Those MI standard and pushing through compliance. So there will be regulations that will come on into play. Dedicated regulation or a General Cybersecurity Act, both of those are cooking. So they will come one day and say this is a Cybersecurity Act. It will cover a lot of things, critical infrastructure, incident response, how to, a lot of things. So this will come. And within that regulation, the mean of making sure those entities respond or comply with this regulation is through this framework. So everything, whenever we want to check if an entity has to, whoever the entity, either a person, like Ms. Dana also said in the last slide, critical organization, supply chain, and individuals. Whatever of these tracks, there is a standard, there is requirements that will be put on that Cybersecurity Act or different regulation, there will be a dedicated assurance mechanism for those. And that would be the need to provide evidence that you are actually complying with that part. And obviously this will consolidate and fortify the existing product. Now, all of this is nice, but again, data is the best thing that can show. So to understand and why you have to apply, I think now is the right time to apply for the audit accreditation or any other accreditation for that matter. Is, as you can see, that we have the number of audits that have been performed for NIA per the years. So in 2022, we're still establishing the agency, a lot of things going on, World Cup, so only 2. Last year, there was more focus on the data classification policy and the updates that we were about. This year, we have 8 audits happening. Plus, there is still 4 applications ongoing. And this basically just based on application. All of these entities now that we saw on the stage that got this, they need to maintain it. Every year they have to go through an audit, and once the 3 years end, they need to go through the certification. So add all this up, take all of these together, add them all up. Next year there will be the double in terms of application. Application only. We're not talking about those who have already a certificate and they want to maintain it, like the maintenance code. That is the pipeline that we have in front of us right now. So what we're just saying, don't be late to the party. Whoever is the existing accredited auditors, they are doing a great job, and whenever there is an increase in business, they will find a way to increase their team, because they will see also the opportunities. And because also they are accredited, they might, and this is what we are seeing basically, is that, like we just explained, an entity knows that I have to only select accredited auditor. Why would I bother myself contacting a service provider that is not accredited? I go to assurance website, go to the list, I contact only the ones that are accredited. So you don't know what are the business opportunities that are going around in terms of you only hear about them once a certificate is issued, and it shows, okay, this entity has been certified, has been audited by this entity. So we are encouraging you, based on this, to basically start your application. We will publish this document. This is an opportunity. This is now a crossroad. This is an opportunity for you. It's never been easier or more accessible to get the accreditation. We are providing all these assistance documents, the standard operating procedure, technical directive. We are updating the training, and we will be extensively running those training. We will be having additional workshops dedicated for the requirement of the accreditation. We will provide you with all the support necessary, because we believe that it's a partnership and you have an important role to play. Without accredited audit service provider, it would be difficult for us to respond to the needs of the market when it comes to NIA certification, which is growing. You heard also earlier the gentleman about the Qatar Financial Market Authority. We are working with them, and next year they will be enforcing on the entity under their supervision, which are like the stock market and brokers, roughly between, I think, 17 to 20 entities, to get the NIA certificate. So add those also on top of the double of the sum of those, and you can see where we are going with this. And to give a note, this is not a coincidence that this is the 3rd annual conference for assurance. So there is 2 things historically that have been done, I think, for those who are like been here for a long time, which is the national day and this conference. So it's not a coincidence that we keeping doing this conference every year and keeping saying this. We're just starting, or we had a little bit of rough patching about moving from an entity to another and other aspects, but it's because this is the exponential curve that we will have. So knowing this now in mind, I hope that this is convincing enough for you to start. We will help you get started and how you can go. So the purpose of the next part is basically the changes. Very high level, what are the changes that we're introducing and why we are doing it, and what is the impact and how can you understand and how they're mapping it with the, we said that, for example, the different opportunities or the benefits that you can get that we just. So, first of all, from an audit standard perspective, we are not talking about yet the accreditation. So, just to give you an idea how the accreditation is set up. So you have the audit standard that you need to follow when you do the audit within the entity. And then you have the accreditation audit standard, which is the standard that you need to comply with when you apply for the accreditation. So one is more oriented to performance once you perform the audit, and the other one is more oriented when you apply for the accreditation. So basically, the update of the audit standard, like we just said, improve auditor expectation, readiness before the audit. So it wasn't clear in the previously audit standard or the existing one right now, what is the expectation, what to expect when it comes to audit. Like I just said, we included 9 additional documents and certain toolkits that will be used by the auditee to, okay, we know I'm an auditor, I have to do the audit, this is what I should expect or should I perform. As an auditee also, we have documents dedicated to the auditee telling them this is what you would expect from the audit. So to be prepared and everything. We will have in the next session, I encourage you also to attend, even though it's more oriented to the end user or like government entity, someone like government entity, about NI certification, to attend also and listen about the experience. We will have the public prosecution representative that he will talk about the experience that they have because they have 2 different audits and the huge reduction in terms of effort and timeline between the first one and the second one because of simple practice they put in place that allowed them to divide by 6 or 7 the timeline and effort that they needed between the first audit and the second one. And this enters into the same perspective that we want. So reduce of the scope of work through sampling, we are reducing the sampling size and how sampling can be done, more directive way of sample size and how to do that. Shorter audit timeline and calendar, minimize the budget and effort for both you as an auditor and also as an auditee to be more accessible. And again, we said answer the concerns that have been raised in previous cases. Now, the audit standard structure, very basically, just to give you a heads up, is very simple. Like any audit standard that you already have, we have a section called audit control environment that will put the principle, independence, proficiency, due care. Then you have the resource part. We have defined competency criteria now for auditor, lead auditor, and engagement lead. You have to make sure that whoever you have in your entity that you say is an auditor or you assign as an auditor, fulfill these competencies. And at the end, a few parts on technology used in audit, computer-assisted audit tools, using of, now certain audit firms are using blockchain into verification of audit transaction. So we are giving you very high level, more like integrity requirement if you are using this tool, certain diligence to follow it. We are not limiting any tool, we are not prescribing any tool or anything, you are free to use your existing tool. We are actually, the changes also are meant also to build on the existing environment of the service provider, not try to enforce things from our end. And the second section, which is basically the audit process, very straightforward. You accept the audit, you plan for it, you execute it, you report on it. Now, the part that is providing more clarity, which was missing a little bit from the previous audit standard, which was the subsequent audit. How a maintenance audit is performed, how a suspension audit is performed, how the recertification is performed. So we are explaining, and again, for example, for each part, we are telling you this is how it goes. So for example, we have a technical directive about audit period and another one about the scope and audit objective. And we are telling you, the audit period for an initial audit is this one, for the maintenance is this one, and for recertification is this one. Same thing as a scope or objective. We're saying the scope of the maintenance is this, of the suspension is this, of the recertification. So clearly it's helped both auditee and auditor have a common ground and understanding of what is to be done. Now the audit process itself is very straightforward. We are just explaining. So mainly here you will perform your independence and proficiency check before you sign the agreement, and then documenting the agreement that will happen with the entity. After that, you will have the planning part. This is the most important part for an audit. We keep repeating this, and I think this is the main challenge what we already have, is that an audit without proper planning is just guesswork. You just like go, check, stumble on something, you put it in the file again. That doesn't give assurance to us as a regulator or anyone that is auditing that the work that has been done well. So most of the supporting documents you will find about this area, about audit risk, how to assess it, materiality, about sampling, about how to select a team, about how to set up the timeline, about how to select the sample size. A lot of documents that will be supporting you here that will be launched. After that, the execution is more about evidence collection. Again, just making sure that the evidence that will be collected is correct, support the findings, conclusions are provided correctly. That's the main point. We are introducing now part because we got this feedback a lot from the entities. We will be involved into the opening and closing meeting. You have to invite NCSA to attend those opening and closing meetings because we had a lot of, I'll not say complaints, but remarks from OT that, okay, something happened and said, okay, but this has been agreed in the opening meeting. This has been discussed in the closing meeting. We don't have, we do not, even if there is a minutes of meeting, it doesn't transcribe what was the issue or the discussion exactly. So it's very simple. We just have, we will not do anything. We will just attend. NCSA, we don't get involved into the audit. So we will attend, we will check certain aspects, make sure that, yes, what should have been done, and that's it. Finally, the reporting. The reporting happens along actually the whole process. Because from acceptance, once you sign the contract, you send it to NCSA, say, we have been engaged with this entity, this is our acceptance, due diligence, and so on. Then from the planning, you send us the audit plan, then you have preliminary reporting and then the final reporting. But mainly it's about the final audit report, that's the big part that we are interested in. We are also reducing the burden of reporting the auditor should do to NCSA. So we're reducing the amount of information you should share with us and the frequency of sharing, making you focus more on the audit when you are auditing rather than sending information to NCSA. Like I just said, the main documents, supporting documents, so we have audit standard operating procedure for audit risk, how to develop audit work program. This is important for a non-accredited service provider. One of the biggest requirements that we have in accreditation is you should have, before you get accredited, a complete work program how you're going to audit the NIA standard. And there is sometimes difficulties to build this work program, takes time, effort to know it. So we're providing you with the standard operating procedure. This is how you develop. We're providing you hints what you should cover, area of attention. And then once you have the standardized audit work program, how to tailor it within a case specific to an entity. About sampling, like I just said, about audit calendar, how to handle corrective action plan when there is no conformity and the auditee wants to fix them within the audit, how that would work, and what is the different timeline and how you do it. Now, on the other hand, like we just said, we have two parts. The audit standard is more about performance, and the accreditation standard is more about the application. So the impact on the application, because also the application or the accreditation standard also have been updated, is to align with the existing accreditation standard and international best practice that we have. So it will be, so for those who have a penetration testing accreditation, it will look very familiar to them, the same structure, the same requirements are repeated. Actually, they are practically the same, just they're different, organized in a different way. That makes it easier if you have an existing accreditation to get the second one. Because what mainly will change, so the domains are three main domains: governance, management, and service. The governance and management are roughly the same. So if you are an organization that is accredited for penetration testing, governance and management should be very straightforward for you. The service part is very specific. So penetration testing have the approach of how to perform the penetration testing, and for the audit, it has the requirement on what needs to be provided by the audit. Clearer requirements, more practical and service-oriented, so we are reducing the governance part or management part and focusing more on the actual service. We just said more clarity through the standard operating procedure and technical directive, and getting ready much easier. Then the accreditation standard structure is this whole. So like we just said, governance, it has under the overall organization, policies, resource management, competencies, ethics. The management part is more related to your information security, because you are an auditor that wants to go and get access to a lot of client data. We have to ensure that you are also secure yourself. Risk and project management, the different audit tools. And finally, the service part, which is, you'll find it very familiar about the audit standard part, which is, again, acceptance, planning, execution, and reports. Now, area of attention before you apply for accreditation, these are the ones. So whenever you go through the requirements, do your gap assessment, then whenever you feel like we are asking for a policy or a procedure that is missing, develop it. Because if we ask for a process, for example, or a policy, it's not because we want to, because this is the international or best practices when it comes to accreditation. So there is an international standard for accreditation, and we are basing it on it. So if we are asking for a process, the right thing to do is not to say, we have this template or we have this PowerPoint presentation, and you're trying to convince us that that's enough. That will never be enough. Let's make it clear. If we're saying you should have a documented process, it means that you should have a documented process. If there is practice, we will say, or we will not tell you you're not completely non-compliant, we will say you have practices, okay, partially compliant, depending on the gap, we'll tell you it's major or minor. But that gap will that requirement will only be compliant if you have a process in place. So whenever there is missing process or policy, please take the time to develop them and have them ready. Then the important part is to evaluate the competencies. So we define competency criteria. It's very important that you do that. We will not ask during the accreditation to show your actual competency evaluation of each individual, but that's something that we can request at any time. So there is a declaration, there is a personal report form, and there is a declaration step on it where you say, we acknowledge that the competency has been fulfilled and this person has a required competency. If you sign that piece of paper and you tick that box and you don't have a supporting document after that, that will be. Then, mostly is to develop the audit template and work paper. And so that is that. So we started late, so we will not do maybe the 10-minute Q&A, but we'll try to, depending on the timeline. So if you have any question, please. So again, coming back to this, is the same QR code. So if you have it still open, or if you want to scan it again, and basically you can share your question with us, and we can actually determine, try to answer them. So, okay. Or if you are against technology, you can ask that question. No question?
Excuse me. For example, an entity is NIA accredited, and there is one auditor in particular entity who has attended all the training and
Okay, sorry, because this I have to correct every time. There is no such an entity called NIA accredited. It's NIA certified entity. The accreditation is meant to service provider. So either it's an NIA audit accredited service provider,
okay.
so it's an auditor, or it's an NIA certified.
Okay. NIA accredited service provider.
Okay, yes.
So there is one auditor in that particular service provider who is NIA accredited auditor.
Yeah.
So if he leaves that entity, but he has all the knowledge and expertise, even after leaving that entity, the service provider, will that auditor be still NIA auditor?
Are you talking at individual level?
Yeah, individual.
Okay. So at individual, the service provider, as per the requirement, has to maintain a minimum number of certified NIA auditors of individuals. It has to maintain a certain number. The lead should be, and a certain number, a minimum number should be. Now, these individuals, when they leave, that doesn't mean that the service provider is suddenly no longer competent to provide the service. This is why I said in the accreditation there is 3 domains. So there is the service part, but mainly there is the governance and management part. The governance of a service provider do not leave with the employee. The management process system of the service provider is not dependent on the employees staying there or not. The service part, even the service part, when you have all the process documented, you have your work papers, your template, your audit procedure, how to perform the audit risk, how to document this. Even if one person leaves, you still have the building blocks. So you bring in another auditor. Yes, maybe he's not certified in NIA, but he's an experienced information security or an IT auditor, CISA, ISO 27001, lead auditor. For a while, you can say this person is not certified. Okay, once we have a session for the training, you can onboard him. We are flexible with, we know that there is a lot of turnovers. We are flexible when it comes to having auditors in this. But we also, when we offer the option or the opportunity to the service provider to train their employees on the NIA audit part, and they don't, then we will be more strict in the accreditation part. Because we gave you the opportunity. We had 1, 2, 3 training sessions and exam sessions. But you as an accredited service provider, you either did not have anyone participating in them, that's even more worrying, or the second option, which is you had people jump in those sessions, but none of them passed the exam. And then raises the question how you are saying that this person is an experienced or competent auditor, and so I'm just trying to explain the whole concept of the certification. You can ask yourself why we have NIA and why we don't use ISO 27001 certification at all. And then we can use the whole program on ISO. The whole point is somehow those certification, we want to be correct, it's just a tick box exercise. It doesn't really test the competence, the knowledge of the auditor. And plus, we are testing things that are specific to it. So by no means the NIA auditor training, and we're saying that when you submit someone, we're saying this for someone who has already existing knowledge and experience about audit and information security. We are not teaching audit in that training. It's just 4 to 5 days. We are not teaching audit. We are taking people who are knowledgeable about information security, knowledgeable and experienced in terms of audit, and we are telling them these are the specificity for the NIA audit part. This is how you should deal with our constituent for the NIA certification.
And this is applicable to both audit services and advisory services? So
No, advisory services as of now there is no, it's not required to have certified implementers for NIA. Because the scope is much broader, it's general advisory. But part of the plan that we are having is to try to tackle that as well.
And if we do the reverse engineering of the same question, if there is an individual auditor who is maybe associated with some organization, but that organization as a service provider doesn't want to have this NIA accreditation for auditing. So what's the process for an individual person who is having adequate cognitive abilities, expertise and financial abilities and client base? So what's the process for him to be an NIA certified accredited auditor?
As an individual, you can apply even without not being part of the organization that is accredited. We actually, last session, we actually had even ODT participating because they wanted to know what the auditor is doing and how they are doing it. They want to understand, so they wanted to have people part of it. So it's not, the training and exam is not tied because it's not offered only to individuals that are working in entities that are accredited. Now the process to participate in any audit, unfortunately there is none. You have to either be employed by an accredited service provider, or an individual that is certified can be contracted by an accredited service provider that maybe does not have the sufficient number of certified auditors to help them perform the audit. But the competency of the individual comes at a lower level than the overall competency of the capability of the service provider. So if there is a competent auditor, it does not necessarily mean that the audit or the whole audit will be performed correctly, because the governing part and the management part of the service provider is not there. Now, once you have that building block plus you have the auditor, the final output should be an audit that is performed correctly.
So either way you have to be associated with some entity?
Yes, either through direct employment, or you can say I'm a certified NIA auditor. A freelancer, someone can offer his service to accredited service provider for audit and say, okay, we are in shortage of auditor. We have a new business that came very short. We need to respond quickly. So you get him through contracting or through outsourcing. In the accreditation program itself, all of this is set up. So you are allowed to bring people through direct contracting, employment, or outsourcing, but each one has its own process. And the same requirement should be applied to those individuals. So if I'm bringing someone through outsourcing, through a different entity, I have to, you as an accredited service provider, you have to check their competency, their integrity, their ethics. You are responsible on them. So it's not just I bring you and that's it. So there is a requirement on the service provider to make sure that whoever is brought through outsourcing or through direct contracting will be subject to the same requirement and the same diligence as a direct employee.
Thank you so much.
One question I have. You mentioned about certain number of auditors or consultants, right?
Auditors, yes.
Yeah. So, what is this minimum count?
3. But again, you can bring them through direct employment contract. So the lead, there is a lead auditor. That lead has to be part of the company, and he has to be certified. Then the other auditors, 3 minimum should be certified, and you can bring them through outsourcing, contracting, or you hire them as employees. So that we will be answering in the next session after the break, but I can give you a brief answer. The first one, and also again, all of these are detailed in the booklet in the booth. I invite you again to go check this out. There is interactive tablets there that give you this exact actual question. You click on NI certification. What are the benefits? You will get the whole story. But first, it's a standard. So the compliance to this NI standard, without or with the certification, you have to do it. This is a national standard that has been published. You have to comply with it. Now let's assume that company is a good company and they have a good GRC and a team internally that is pushing to compliance with different regulation and standard. So has been pushed to implement NIA, not maybe an NIA, corporate framework that include NIA, data classification policy, maybe Qatar Science 50 framework, ISO 27001, whatever you want. You have done this implementation. And your second line of defense, your risk management and your GRC are performing, and maybe the internal audit did this audit, and everything's fine. You did 95% of the job, but you don't show anything out to the world. So having the certification is the same benefit like in ISO 27001. You're doing it for marketing perspective, making sure that you have an independent assessment about the actual security that you would have implemented in place. Now, in the future also, and this is what we are saying about the regulation and earlier we talked about, is that also it will be compensated in the near future. So these are the benefit. Again, we will have a representative of public prosecution. He can tell you what is, so public prosecution is a government entity. They have ISO 27001 as a certification. They are subject to the Qatar Cybersecurity Framework assessment. They have the NI certification. Why they value the most the NI certification and why they think they got their first certificate, then they got the second one to cover the entire entity, critical and non-critical process, and then they went ahead and renewed their original certificate, and they're still trying to pursue any other aspect when it comes to, so for example, trying to move from 2.0 to 2.1, even though the certificate have been already issued, and they will try to do it. Because they've seen internally there is benefit when it comes to security, improving maturity, because the certification also you have to maintain it, so it's a continuous improvement. The level of depth of the review is different when it comes to, it's a process. So the auditors are rigorous, and even if they are not, we are on a little bit on their back, and accredited auditors here can attest to that. So this whole system makes that at the end you have a very detailed output that you can use and you can benefit from it to your internal security. Yes?
When do you think it will be mandatory, the compliance?
The compliance to NIS certification. So there is two paths, like I just said. So there is a path, like I just explained, for example, with Qatar Financial Market Authority, where we take it with the sector regulator, and the sector regulator, because he has already the power, he has already the authority, for them, it's a program that's existing, they don't have to do anything, and they just have to write a memo saying everyone. So that's one path, and that's the short-term one that we are using that is for this year and next year. Now, a big pillar or a big objective of the strategy is to implement Cybersecurity Act. So part of that Cybersecurity Act, which is, we cannot give a date, you know, the legislation cycle, how long it takes back. Again, the thing is that cycle, that legislation cycle, once it's issued, the grace period, and this is why we are trying to push anyone to get an NI certification now. The grace period, there will be grace period for the but it will never be long enough for an entity that did not do anything to be compliant on time. Because, you know, let's say the regulation is issued like in March of a year, and it says you have 6-month grace period. You didn't budget for this. Good luck. So, what is good is to start preparing, so when this happens, either you're already certified and I'm compliant from day zero, or at least I'm already done the big part, let's say the implementation part. I did the gap assessment, I did the internal audit, and once the regulation is issued, I just have to do the small part, which is just the audit, and based on the audits that we are doing, the audit can be very short in time that will allow you easily in that grace period to get your
Do you know what would be the fees, or what can I say, the fines that will be put in companies if they don't do that, and can we use that for marketing?
Even if I know, I will not pay. Obviously, this is the legislation side again. Depends on a lot of things. But I can give the reference. There will be for sure fines, and there will be also the potential to, because this is a regulation, it's a public interest. So there will be also potentially, like in the data privacy law, for example, to go to public prosecution and say this entity is not compliant, then prosecute them. This is a standard generic thing that goes in every regulation that exists. But the fine would be, I think, juicy, because we are doing a lot of things to help in terms of, for example, starting from next year, all the government will have a dedicated line in the budget dedicated to cybersecurity. It's no longer part of IT, and you have just 2% of that IT budget to security. You have a dedicated line item, and it will be reviewed, and it has to be mapped to project, and the project has to be mapped to what we are doing when it comes to policies. So I'll give you an example. So for example, let's say an entity that has nothing to yet in terms of cybersecurity. They want to get the budget. They send it for review. They say we are implementing ISO 27001. There is a high chance that budget or that project will be denied because they tell them, why are you following that? There is a national standard, you are not getting it. So there would be other mechanisms and stuff that would be included. So this starts from 2025. Every government entity that will go through this process. Any other question? Right. Thank you so much. So before you go, please, again, this is how we came up to all these changes and trying to respond to your need about this session in general. So this is not about the accreditation itself. About this session, you can scan the QR code. It's a survey. Please fill and give your feedback. Will help us improve the format, the land, the detail of the workshop. Will help us. Thank you so much for your attendance. I hope you benefit from this session. And thanks for the team also.
Hello everyone.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here today. I'm from the Cyber Assurance Department. We know that pursuing to NIA certification can be challenging, so we are here to talk about these challenges together. This forum is an opportunity to share your experiences, ask questions, and help us understand where improvements can be made to help you better. In this session, we will be talking about the key updates that the NCSA have made to facilitate the NCSA, the NIA certification. The whole journey starts with the implementation of NIA controls within the organization. The guidelines on how to implement and the requirements are available on our website. Once you have implemented these controls, you can initiate the process to pursue the NIA certification, which starts from application and scope approval to auditor selection and audit, and finally the NCSA decision and award. In order to understand the challenges faced pursuing NIA certification, we conducted a survey with the help of our accredited advisors, reaching out to entities who are facing challenges in implementation to NIA certification, NIA controls, and entities who have implemented and have not applied for certification. The main challenges identified were related to the audit process. After reviewing the survey results, we came up with these main objectives. Shortening the timeline of the certification process to ensure quicker completion, reducing the effort required required by both applicants and auditors by simplifying the audit procedures, demystifying the certification and the audit process with clearer guidelines and detailed resources. And finally, encouraging more audit service providers to become accredited for any auditor to increase the availability. To understand more about these challenges, may I ask you please to scan this QR code and give the survey, please? May I ask our co-sponsor of the participants who selected the timeline challenge to provide more detailed explanation, please?
No one wants to contribute. Let me consider there is no issue with it that way. Again, in audit perspective, if there is no justification, I'll say it there. But anyone can share, like, what is it?
You should have put it box.
Sorry.
You should have put an edit box for everybody to come to one. You chose this. So on and so forth.
Okay,
So this way everybody will just put his comments in there.
okay. Have you chosen the lengthy timeline?
I have this.
Can you share with us why?
Why me?
It has to be someone.
It takes time actually from start to finish. First the registration, you have to register ahead of time. So it costs money now and before. And then you have to go through the process. They give you a limit time of like 2-3 months before the expiration of that registration. So you're under pressure of completing the work, finding the resources first, completing the work. Since it's new, almost everybody. I'm speaking from the first attempt, actually we did attempt in 2019 for the people. And we failed to complete. We reached the end and we failed to complete because the process wasn't clear for everybody. Until BP was awarded, it took like 11 months. And then we have to follow the lead and go with the standard. And it was not clear actually what to do. Even the resources themselves, or the company that we worked with, they were trying to gather the information and try to do it right, quote unquote. But there was nothing clear. So it extended, and we lost the registration, and then the issue of who to pick for an auditor, external auditor. That was another thing that we had to go through. So it just prolonged and then put aside. So we put it on the back burner until now. So we'll put in another attempt, and let's see. Hopefully, it will be shorter than the first attempt.
Sure.
So we tried and failed, other than fail and try.
We can answer the reasons for that, and I think it's very interesting feedback, and thank you for that. And we can explain at the beginning, in 2019, we just started, and there was, I think, also the misconception among the entities that were supposed to help you out with this, explaining what is the process. So the process that I just showed, application, that's for the certification. That's you start when you're done with the implementation. Everything is done, implemented, evidence ready. Actually, it shouldn't be 2 months. It should be 1 week, because the requirements are there. They're very straightforward. It's just an application. And this is why when you apply, you get usually a response from our end saying, this requirement, you pass this one, you need to provide more clarity within a few days, 3, 5 days, maybe 2 weeks.
So when you say us, who are you? Us.
As a cyber assurance department.
It was CDP at that time?
Yeah, it was CDP at that time and cyber assurance department. Because what you see at that time, or any CSA as of now, we don't help entities implement compliance. Because otherwise we would have a conflict of interest. If I come and tell you, do 1, 2, 3, you will be fine. How can I later on, you tell me, you told me to do 1, 2, 3. I can no longer challenge anything, otherwise I look like I don't know what I'm doing. So this is why also when you go to our website, first thing, assurance.ncsa. First thing you go home, before we start talking about certification, accreditation, anything else, you find first thing, principles. Independence, objectives. Before we start anything, these are the bases we build on. So the certification process does not include the implementation part. This is why there is shorter time. So, and this is why we also included in our website a page saying these are the prerequisites that they are not part of the certification process. And this is explained also in the interactive tablet that you have in the booth that says before you start, make sure that you have around these steps, have everything ready. Then once you start the certification, then it should go smoothly. Again, to respond to this challenge, and like I said in the earlier session, I think Sajid here from public prosecution will attest. So once you have that experience and you have everything ready, that lengthy timeline should not be there. Plus, this is what the update we are doing, trying to. That's exactly the purpose of the changes that we discussed in the previous session, and we also will be presenting this. And we will provide you with the actual impact of this. But thank you for this. That's what it is. Thank you.
Just one more thing I want to add into the timelines. Even the duration of the audit itself earlier was lengthy. I'm not sure what is the current process right now.
Lengthy, this is why we had a lot of comments from different entities. This is taking too long. To be honest with you, personal feedback. I don't know where they come from. Is that coming from a comparison to the ISO certification, for example? That I've been audited my whole life. For me, if you tell me the audit takes 6 months, yeah, it could take 6 months, depending on the scope, depending on the complexity, depending on the number of individuals available, depending on the readiness of the auditee. It can take, in terms of calendar time, 6 months. It's not like 6 months, there is one person working every day on the audit. But if an auditor comes, requests a list of information, does not get anything, he will pack his bag, go home, whatever, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the evidence are ready, he will come back. Now there is also certain delays coming from MCSA reviewing the auditor work. We acknowledge that. And the purpose of all of these changes is to address from all the angles, not just purely saying, this is between the auditee and the auditor, only that. So we're addressing it from all the different perspectives, all the different angles, trying to address that challenge. We actually did put a calendar, a reference calendar, that will help manage things, a common agreement between auditee, auditor, and CSA, what we think is a rough, timeline for even each individual step within the audit process.
Okay, adding to the system here, for the external audits, I don't know what now, but previously they would give you a time limit when you go in a deal with them, or you go in a deal with them as a proposal, or we're going to do this in 6 months. So this is your cost. So is this going to be the same way now? When we approach an external audit, it's going to say, oh, it take us 3 months to complete the NIA, the audit. Is this the same approach now?
No, the
This
approach,
is how it was before.
yes. The approach now, that because there is this agreed on calendar, so you as an auditee, you can challenge them saying, okay, but the reference document say, obviously there is always plus minus a little bit. The reference document says that it can be done in this period. Justify to me what is, maybe he doesn't have resources available, he's not available, he cannot start working before that. And then, this is purely a commercial aspect between the auditee and the auditor.
Yeah,
and
when he approaches you and tells you to take this long, he does not know what I have in advance, does he? The external audit? No.
He should be. Otherwise, it's just a guesswork. Normally, you get certain basic information about what is your scope, how many departments, how many control you have in place, roughly how many assets are covered, and based on that, he can give you a estimate. So, specifically for that, for example, we have a next slide that explains exactly how things will work, and Alia can explain that more.
So here are the key updates which came up. The bigger circles are the updates, and the small circles are the benefits that are coming up from these updates. Since the timeline was the biggest issue here, so to reduce the timeline, we came up with well-defined audit calendar and audit sampling. That will reduce the effort by auditors as well, and leveraging from other audit work, which will reduce efforts by entities as well. Moreover, there's the readiness assessment form, which will improve the clarity to entities. Following these updates, we consulted our accredited auditors to assess the beneficial impact. The audit timeline will be reduced by 12%. Effort in mandates will be reduced from 8 to 19%. As for interviews and attendance numbers, will be reduced for up to 50%. And for the audit fees, it could be reduced for up to 20%. We are pleased to have Mr. Shajjal from the head of Information Security Operations from Qatar Public Prosecution with us today. Qatar Public Prosecution has been fully certified twice for phase 1 and phase 2. He is here today to share their experience on the NIA certification journey and how this achievement have helped protect their information. Please welcome Mr.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I thank Cyber Assurance Department for inviting me here. I like to share my internal thoughts now. You know, for the last 2-3 years, I always used to see an empty room. So finally, I see we have opening. always I used to check with cyber assurance why more organizations are not coming here, or why they are not adopting this program. So I just like to use this opportunity to share our experience for public prosecution. Qatar Public Prosecution, we opted to be the pilot organization way back in 2019, and I believe, Alhamdulillah, I like to start with the positives first. So it was a very challenging journey because it was something very new, not only for public prosecution, for the ecosystem, for the accredited auditors, accredited implementers, even for the cyber assurance. So during the audits itself, I believe we used to have long discussions. I used to give my feedbacks, etc. And by the way, once we did the first phase audit, I can say it took almost 6 to 7 months to have the full complete audit cycle. So the first thing I like to highlight is once we completed the audit, once we look back, there are key achievements, or we can say key benefits for the organization. For us, the first, and I don't like to go to the technical side, but the most important things I like to highlight is the certification helped us to have a better understanding of the business objectives. It helped us to align the security objectives with the organization goals, and also by bridging the security and the business objectives, we as the department, we are able to support the organization mission and vision. This is very important item. Another key achievement or benefits I feel is how we are maintaining and mitigating the risk. And also it has helped to build a culture of security within the organization, from the business to the IT department. This was a big difference. As public prosecution, even in way back 2013, we were ISO 27001 certified. But I can say from my personal experience, yes, NI certification can give a whole different perspective. How we can, focus on our key business processes, what are the key, how we need to give the importance to the, the right controls for the right business process, etc. Other than that, one of the things I like to highlight is, yes, it gives us an assurance about the organization, security posture, going through a rigorous and independent audits. This will give us confidence that our security controls are really being tested and it is being effective also. Also, it gives us an opportunity for the controls where we need to develop also. Now, after the first audit, which happened, as I told you, almost 2019 or 2020, this year we did our phase 2 audit, which helped the organization to bring the full organization under the NI certification. So it was the phase 2 audit. Within that, within the next month itself, we also did the recertification audit, just to renew our phase 1 audit. So one of the key highlights, what I like to highlight here is, we were able to complete both the audits, the phase 2 audit and the recertification audit, in 1 month exactly. So one of the, this is all through the lessons learned. This is with with key interactions with the cyber assurance department, with the NI implementers, with the NI auditors. We were able to streamline the whole audit process. So I like to share the experience. So before, I'm happy first of all to see all the organizations getting ready for the NI certification journey. The first and foremost, as Saif earlier mentioned, is the key is to be well prepared before we apply for the NI certification. So it's always, I believe, you have the due diligence to make sure that you have the right management support. It's important that you select the right implementers. Nowadays there are good accredited implementers within the ecosystem. It's important you do your due diligence before you select your implementers. So before you are going to apply for the NI certification, it's very important now. The NCSA, the Cyber Assurance Department, has come out with the NI scoping standard. And I believe all the requirements has been very clearly stated, like example, the scoping document, the certification plan. And one of the key additions I personally commend for their work is the pre-assessment checklist. This is very important. This will give an opportunity for the organization itself. How really are they ready for the certification? So I really recommend that before you even apply for the NI certification, make sure that you complete the pre-certification assessment checklist. This will really understand what are your key weaknesses, which are the controls you need to give more time and focus. So once you have the NI certification, once you have the documents ready, you can proceed with the NI certification application. So it will help really to streamline the certification approval process also, because I can say that once we had this ready, when our phase 2, it was much easier even for the approval cycle. So once we complete that and once you select the right NI or accredited auditors, before the audit starts, again, one of the personal key experience as I like to share is with public prosecution, what we did is we had nominated domain level spokes. You know, it's very important that we should not have this audit run by one or two individuals. It's very important that within the organization itself, we should have at least a set of people who is ready to take accountability for different domains. So there will be domain spokes, and during the internal audits, during the preparation phase itself, they have a good idea of what are the evidences supposed to be needed for the external audits. This is very important, and I can personally vouch this really reduces the timeline. And again, also this is, again, the more the people are taking participation of the program, the more it will be reaching the full organization also. Second thing, it's very important that once you have, I'm sure you will have some non-compliance during the pre-assessment checklist. It's very important that you have status updates ready, because I know the external auditors will come and ask for the status updates for the pre-assessment checklist. Second thing, it's important that you agree before itself with the auditor the timelines. Again, you know, based on the availability of the auditor and the auditees itself, again, this will also help in reducing the timeline. Again, one of the key lessons we have learned from the phase 1 and the phase 2 audit was about maintaining the evidence container. The evidence container is something which is supposed to be with the auditee only, and we just give the access to the auditor. One of the important thing I like to highlight is it's very important that whenever any evidences are being collected or shared, it's important that you have a prefix for the domain names. Each domain, there is a domain and there is a control. Example, you go for any specific domain, say the case of risk management. It will be RM3. So any evidences for the RM3 which is requested by the auditor, make sure that it will have a prefix RM3 and the audits, because this will really reduce the confusions and back and forth clarifications, and it will really help reduce the time. And I mean, few of the things really I wanted to jot out. These are the things. So really I can say now with the new standard, with the new experience, what we have learned over the last 2-3 years, really I can say, I can vouch that now, yes, we just completed an audit, and it was full-fledged audit, which helped us to complete the organization for the full NI certification. It didn't take for us more than 1 month, and we did back-to-back audits also. So I really like to stop this small speech by encouraging everyone to come, and and really it will help to enhance the security posture of the whole organization. And I really wish you all the best. Thank you so much.